Lied Can Fly, podcast for contemporary art song. Hello and a warm welcome to Lied Can Fly. My name is Sabine Bergk and I created this podcast to bring contemporary art song into the ears of people who just would like to hear it. And today I'm very, very honored that we've got Sarah Aristidou as a guest. Hello, Sarah.
Hello, thank you for having me.
Well, it's so wonderful. I think life is so magic. And I just followed my heart doing this podcast because I've been writing as a poet many contemporary art songs. And then I just thought I just want to show some to my 20 friends. And now this is such a journey. It became such a huge journey. And there's so many wonderful things to discover and wonderful artists. And I'm just so happy that you're here.
I'm happy too.
So I just present you shortly. Sarah, you're very, very young and you studied first musicology in France at the Sorbonne and also graduated in music theory. And then you finished your singing studies in Berlin and finally in Munich at the Theaterakademie August Everding. And then you were part of the International Opera Studio at the State Opera in Berlin. And immediately there were discs coming out. So I feel you had such a strong artistic start. And what I really love, and when I look at your homepages, you say Sarah Aristidou is an artist. And I feel this is so wonderful because when I worked at the opera, so many singers were just fulfilling some kind of pattern or fulfilling an image how a singer should be. And then they were missing their own soul. And for me, singing is something that is connected to your soul and to the world. And it's such a strong commitment to the world. And I've met so wonderful singers where I always thought they're strong artists, but the system is keeping them down. And you just started by being yourself. And this is so wonderful. And many other people liked it so much that you got the Luitpold Prize for Outstanding Performance already in 2021. And then in 2022, you got the Belmont Prize for Contemporary Music, which is a very important prize. And you were the first singer who got it.
Yes.
And many, many contemporary composers are writing for your voice. For example, Jörg Wittmann, but also Aribert Reimann wrote a piece for your voice, and composers as Manfred Trojan and Thomas Larcher. So you were immediately interested in what is happening in our time, and everybody was responding to you. And this is so wonderful because I think whatever you radiate, it comes back to your life. Mm-hmm. So you've been in such a good energy from the beginning that everybody was just saying yes. And this is really amazing. And today we talk about a disc you've been creating with Alpha Classics. You've been creating 2 discs. Esther was in 2021, I think, and then in 2023, Enigma. How did that come, Sarah, that you almost want to find the whole range from birth to death and what a voice could be? Was it your idea, and how was it to do this? Where did the impulse came from?
Well, that's a that's a very good start. Well, I've always wanted to do that. What I create is in continuation of who I am also in life, or how I feel, how I express myself. And so I always wanted to, if I would ever record something, to do something that is in tune with who I am. And I was not really finding that in general in the classical, in the opera singer world, let's say. And I had the real chance to meet Didier Martin from Alpha Classics, and he was directly interested in the idea. Actually, it originally started with Enigma. That was the first project. It just came later, but it was recorded first. So that was the first baby, let's say. And we had some back and forth around the program, because originally I wanted to have a very big piece by Aribert Reimann inside. In the end, it turned out that I am playing with Jörg Wittmann, and also we are doing a piece that he wrote together. So it was also really, really beautiful. It was a long journey to find the right succession of pieces. Also, we talked a lot with Daniel pianist on the album, and because it was the first thing I would do, there were a few people involved in that, but I always had this very clear idea that I want to have something that ranges from all the different, let's say, all the years of music history. Because for me, music is music, and I always find it so sad that we put everything into boxes, and that a singer has to concentrate on certain repertoire, or like people are very surprised when you do a piece from Baroque music and then a contemporary song and then maybe some opera. I don't like that. I feel, for me, I was raised like that. Also, I was raised with so many different cultures and sounds and colors and tastes, and that's part of who I am. So when I jump from one genre to the other, it's just a language. It's nothing different. So I like that very much that you said that for you everything is connected to the soul, because this is also how I feel things. So what I really wanted to share when I started to do these two albums, and Ether went even deeper into that. And Ether was, funny enough, was very quick. The, let's say, I don't know, the downloading of the idea, or of the succession of pieces, it all made sense. And I like also to combine that everything is in continuation. So when you take a time to maybe to be in the music and to listen, every change makes sense harmonically. Also, it's everything is thought from the beginning to the end. And yes, that's how somehow things, it's very difficult to say how it started, actually, because it came very naturally, and then it happened very quickly. I mean, for Ether, we had many problems to record it because it was during COVID, and I had this brilliant idea to record with 100 musicians. So it was almost impossible. Everyone was saying it will never happen. I hope what I'm saying is making sense.
It's completely making sense. In the booklet,
Yes.
you have a little citation saying in English, "I'm but a sigh, giving life to a cloud, and I shall vanish, scattered through infinity." It's a translation from a French poet. But I feel that it's also the same. Enigma might be the continuation of this, because you were talking about the birth and the death and being an echo, maybe something like an echo. And it's also an exploration what a voice can do. And Jörg Wittmann said about your voice that you've got an incredible range yourself. So this is so interesting, because you're able to do such a deep breast voice and then go very, very high and very versatile. And at the same time, you're creating an artistical panorama of life, so that's something where I feel like it's like a research of what are we, where are we, and where are we going to?
Exactly. I think this is the endless question, no? I will ever have an answer to that, but that's my way to try and search for answers. And I have always been very curious about all the sounds, all the possibilities, all the like hungry for life. And the same, I would say, for sound, and for how far can we go, actually? What can I express with my instruments? And as you said, the most important is that everything comes from within and is connected to the soul. And yes, I think this is a quite a big journey, actually.
Yeah, and today we are talking about a piece called Lamento Turco, and it's from Andreas Tsiartas, and I just present him a tiny little bit. So he's also Cypriot in origin, and he studied in Dresden and then in York at the University of York composition. And in 2019, he was the first prize winner of the Discovering Young Composers of Europe competition. And he was part of international summer courses for new music in Darmstadt, and learned with Beat Furrer and Rebecca Saunders and Peter Edfisch and Matthias Pincher and many others. And he developed something he calls the sound ritual. And I got in contact with him today to ask him how did that come? How did you come to write this piece? And he told me that It's quite a very special piece because he wrote it in 2007 and 8, so very early, and it stayed in a drawer of a cupboard for 10 years because no singer thought he could ever sing it. And then in Stuttgart, it was given to Johanna Vargas and she premiered it. And then you found it and you said, I want to do this piece. And for me, it's such a strong piece. That's why I wanted to have it in this podcast, because it's about the range of the soul and the range of existence and the range of the voice. So it's some kind of triple thing. And he told me that with this piece, he developed this approach, the sound ritual. So it's for himself, it was a beginning of some special way of composing. And I feel the Lamento Turco is a very strong commitment to life and also to birth. And you start in your disc Enigma with the alpha and you end with the omega. And it's so true. When we are born, we make a sound, and when we die, we make a sound. And this is what the whole CD is about. How did that feel for you to sing this piece?
It's interesting that you mentioned also the ritual. It's a very, very strong piece, and it's quite intense to sing also. And I really love it because, yes, of course, you have all these different range of sounds and of textures, but also it demands from you that you go inside and that you dig inside. And it is quite, it's like a meditation or a ritual. And for me it feels, and this is also how I saw these two albums also. It's every time you go deeper and deeper into different layers of the soul, and you encounter the light, but you also encounter the dark. For me it's a question of balance, and you can only attain light if you go into the darkness, I think. And those pieces are so, I was saying those pieces because I'm also thinking of Labyrinth 5 by Jörg Wittmann, because they are quite, there is also this quest through the sound towards the inside. And I think the deeper I get inside, the deeper people around can also go in themselves.
Yeah, and I think that's why there's a connection immediately. That's why
Yeah.
I'm sure you didn't mean to reach so many people, but just by doing this, you were radiating so much that all this came to you, and now you're challenged every day with so many concerts and but also wonderful challenges. But I always felt that music is something sacred that helps us to live, and sometimes there are some fashions or ways of composing, and it all goes too far away from your body and your soul. And I felt when I heard this piece by Andreas that he's so connected to also to the, he said he loves human nature and the soul and the aspects of the whole being, and birth is such a strong aspect, and death as well. So I just tell you a little personal thing. When I was a child, my grandmother died in my arms, and she screamed when she died, and I was haunted by this scream for all my life, you know. So it was so terrible, and I thought I murdered her because she was screaming in my hands. So it was terrible. So it wasn't a nice little sigh and then she died. It was a terrible scream, and I was a child. I was holding her, and I think as well that things like that are part of life, and life is so strong. And when art comes very close to life, it can give such an impulse and so much goodness to us all, that it's a fundamental thing.
Yeah.
And when art just goes into some temples of concert, and then people would say, oh, we can cut the costs, we don't need it, you know. But I think when it's getting so fundamental, as I always feel like Claudio Monteverdi's music, I said to Andreas, you know, this Lamento Turco, I'm so glad that you take this elementary grief, that music can help us to overcome grief and to be connected to life. And Monteverdi was doing this as well, in a way that when you sing it yourself, you burst into tears because it's so strong. So let's listen to the music.
Yes, with pleasure.
Because of the GEMA licenses, I can only play 5 minutes of this piece. If you want to listen to the whole piece, you can buy the CD Enigma by the label Alpha Classics. This was a part of the Lamento Turco by Andreas Tsiartas with Sarah Aristidou. Thank you, Sarah. It's so overwhelming that you create those wonderful albums and that Alpha Classics also was ready to go this artistical way with you, and they have to be courageous as well. And is it also that your love for photography helps you for singing with light and darkness? And because I saw that you've been doing wonderful pictures as well.
Yes, I've recently started to put them online and to start saying that I'm also a photographer.
Yeah.
Yes, this is also, it has also to do with not following what people expect from you, or people tell you how you should lead a career. And this is a part also of who I am. And this is why I think, yes, when I take pictures, it's almost not me. I don't know how to say it, but it's just in this particular moment, something touches me and I just click, and I almost don't work on them. They are almost raw, and this is very, very close to nature. And this is something that that inspires me when I sing. And if I can say, I think the moment where I started to be more confident in the photography was when I went to Iceland. So just for the first time, it was just a few months after recording Enigma and 2 months before recording Ether. And it was it changed all my life. And it was such a strong mirror and lesson. And when I was there, the nature was so powerful. And I sat there looking at the waves and being taken in all directions from the wind. And I don't know what it was, but I was saying, this is what I want to express, to be able to express. This is what I want to feel. This is what I want to carry with me. And I realized slowly that I've started doing it in the photography, and then I try to bring it more and more into what I create. And for example, in Enigma, there is also this central piece called Enigma also. And this is based on the sound of an Aeolian harp, the Aeolian harp in Baden-Baden, actually, which is, I think, the biggest in Europe. And it is a sound created by nature, because you have the strings in the outside and the wind caresses the strings, and then those sounds are being born. And on that, Daniel and I improvised. So this is a one take. It is not cut or anything. It's one take in the studio, and it was quite powerful. And in that one, for example, I felt I'm able to gather everything that I am or that I experience, every sound I've heard, every color, every taste I've had. And this is something that I carry also in the classical music. I think also you can hear that in the Lamento and also in the Labyrinth 5, which is in Ether. I mean, I hope.
Yeah.
and these are things that I cannot disconnect from who I am.
Yeah, but it's wonderful because it's so alive, and I think inside everything you find some kind of inner source of happiness, whatever happens to you.
Yes.
So when you go deeper and deeper, and even if you're angry and you can't forgive someone, or whatever happens to yourself, when you go deeper and deeper, you just find joy. And
this is it.
This joy is the creation.
Absolutely. And I think, usually it is the idea that we have from all these things that we will encounter that is bigger, or that gives us more fear than the actual thing. And if we dare to face those different things, or like we can say darker things, but I don't think it's not meant in a negative way, but let's say anger, or I don't know, every palette of emotion or of sensations of experiences we've had, if we manage to face them and stay in them, there's a moment where it shifts. And then I think this is life. This is a constant birth and death and rebirth, and that this is a cycle. And the deepest we go, the more we can encounter life.
Yeah, and there's so much beauty in it. So also
Yes.
in birth, that's the most beautiful thing you can experience. If you're not afraid of dying, you get everything.
Yes.
And it's just birth and death. It's opening up for something you don't know. And when you're ready to open up, so many things that are wonderful can come to you.
Yes.
Singers also open up all the time when they sing. So was it like taking a risk for your voice because you're doing great challenges and emotional ways, so you also
Yes.
scream, and not many singers are ready to scream. They would be afraid of killing their voice. So how does that feel for you?
I think I have first to say that the part of it comes, first of all, of who I am and how I am. And I've never really be afraid of that. And I always loved experimenting with sounds. And my parents couldn't hear them anymore. Like I was always trying something. And so I think this is in who I am also as a person. Yes, always open for different things. And I think there is also the way of how I've been raised, the fact that I grew up also partly in Cyprus and that we had so many different cultures and big circle of friends from all kind of different nationalities. And I remember all these fiery discussions at the table where no one was agreeing to each other, and more screaming instead of listening to each other. But for me as a child, this was a range of sounds and of emotions, of fire, of life that I've been always mesmerized. And also I grew up first with folk music. So that's the first thing I have been experiencing and experimenting. And there is a lot of chesty sound, and this is how I was born, I think. And also my parents were listening to many kind of different music, and there was of course the Greek music, Cypriot music, but also Arabic music, quite a lot actually, from Kulthum, for example, and Ferouz, and singers, very powerful singers that I've been listening since I was a child. There's also this Greek singer, Haris Alexiou, who has a very, very raw sound. And so since the childhood, I've been bathing in those sounds. And then I would always improvise, because this is also an element that was quite present at home when people would meet, and that I loved as a little anecdote, I think, when, you imagine in the summer under the stars and the warmth, and people have been sitting at the table for quite a long time and drinking quite a lot, so they forgot that you are there instead of bringing you to bed.
Yeah.
So as a child, you're still there and listening. And then they start, I remember a lot in the family, they were starting to improvise. So it would always start with the like a shout like that, and then they would start to speak, and then kind of a mix of singing, speaking, and then people had to answer, and with the rhymes and everything, and I couldn't understand what they were saying, but the sounds and this aliveness, I don't know, that has been always with me. And then I discovered Maria Callas, and that was also quite a shock. I think this is when I decided to sing. I didn't understand what it was, and I said I want to do this. And I don't think it necessarily meant classical music, but I think it was the way, her way, just of, as you said, being so connected to her soul, and her art being just a continuation of this, and not really hers in a way, but hers. I don't know if this makes sense. But continuing from that, one of the first singers that I heard when I was in the conservatory, I think I was 8 or so, was Cathy Berberian, which is was the wife of Berio. And that was the first time I could hear a classical singer not being afraid of crossing borders, and of being, yes, quite open to try, and with humor also, because this is so important. Because I think, and it took me quite a long time to start giving up this seriousness, because we do everything very serious in classical music. And then I think we lack humor, which is also quite a big part of life, I think, if you know how to take it from a certain angle. And when I started listening to her, I also started realizing, because I had many questions also about where I come from, and why don't I have the same voice than other people? Why doesn't it make sense, certain sounds in classical music, but why do I have this huge chest voice, and how can I mix both, and am I normal or not? And then she was, as a child, when I listened to her, it was the start of some answers. So everything came quite naturally. And then of course, in the studies, everyone was saying I shouldn't do this, I shouldn't do that, I shouldn't scream, I shouldn't Yes, everything. I shouldn't speak like I speak, because this disturbs also quite a lot of people. And many teachers sent me to doctors to see if I had something on the cords, which I don't. It's just my way of speaking. And this is a color, it's my color. And I had the chance to meet certain people here and there who would tell me, just go for it. This is exactly what you're supposed to do, or experiment. Don't be afraid. Like someone like Axel Baumi, one of my first teachers for contemporary music, who has done a lot for contemporary music. He was the first in my studies in Berlin to actually believe in me and say, yeah, this is it, and dig deeper. You need to dig deeper. Or someone like Daniel Barenboim, for example, who supported me, or this first singing teacher who gave me this CD of Kati Berberian. They gave me so much, and also from my different cultures. So slowly, I realized it's not enough for me to just sing beautifully. I find it boring. And so I decided to see, what if I use this sound? What if I do this? So first I was trying this at home in my shower or wherever. And then when I started digging deeper into contemporary music and meeting people like Jörg Wittmann, where he said, like, wow, what is that? Can you do that again? What is that? Where does it come from? And doing sessions, especially for Labyrinth 5, for example, but even before, when we met for Labyrinth 4, I remember we had just met, and we sat for 15 minutes in his wardrobe, and I sung a Cypriot folk song. I shouted, I did some jiggles, I did some crying, some laughing, and then there it was. And it was such a beautiful thing. And what I've realized now, like the more I go, the less I have questions about. I don't even ask myself how I do things. I think for this kind of sounds, for example, the screaming, this is all for me connected to an emotion. And as long as it is connected to an emotion and it comes from within, nothing can harm the voice. I mean, of course, I would not do it for 50 hours.
That's
but
interesting. That's so interesting that you say it, because once I had a reading, and a very famous actor that I worked with, I said, can you train me with reading or speaking? He said, oh, you know what? Nothing can hurt your voice. And it helped me so much, just this sentence, nothing can hurt your voice. And then I was just reading slowly, and my breath would come back, and follow the sounds.
Yes.
And I felt that it was supporting in a natural way. And later on, I met an actress, and she always had voice problems, and she would never rehearse at home. We lived together. She would never rehearse because she was afraid of hurting her voice. I mean, I'm not a professional speaker, but I know that nothing can hurt my voice. That was such a good
Yes.
experience.
Yes, but it's also it is a fear that is there, because in opera, for example, we are searching for the beauty of the sound. And of course, this is a certain quest that requires quite a lot of attention and quite a lot of care. And I mean, I used to live like that before. I used to not speak before a concert. I would not meet people, and then at some point I realized that this is not life. This cannot be it. I refuse to live a life full of such a limiting and sad things. And I realized, since I'm actually more into life, that it works also way better.
Yeah, that's so wonderful that you liberated yourself from all this no. I'll just talk this way. And
Yeah, exactly. I've been told to talk like that.
and because we all long for freedom, and in the end, artists who are like Pina Bausch, who have found their own ways of being free as an artist, can connect to the strong inner sources, and that's what we all long for. And everybody's got an inner voice that is very precious, and I think it's about listening to those impulses and inner voices. That is a very sensitive thing to do. That also very silent thing. Sometimes it's not always loud, you know.
Exactly. It requires quite a lot of courage, because sometimes it's just not in tune with what the outside is expecting or saying. So it demands quite a strong listening and inner trust.
Oh, Sarah, I'm so glad that you were guest at my podcast. It's an infinite journey for everybody. And
Yes, absolutely.
and I'm so happy that we've got so many listeners being part of this infinite journey, and they all accept my imperfection and my courage. And I thought it's important to do this journey. And as you say, maybe we are just an echo, but we are alive, and that's so great. And I wish you so many wonderful experiences and concerts and many more discs where you can give your artistic colors and voice into creating something special.
Thank you very, very much.
So now we've got to finish this episode and hope to see you another time.
Yes, we continue. It's infinite.
This was Lead Can Fly with Sarah Aristidou. Thank you for listening and hope you join us next time.